Today we're going to quickly repair a bad spa light. If you have a hot tub with an LED light, it might look something like this, or like this. Alright, what you're supposed to do is, when it's in your hot tub, you interrupt power, and it's supposed to change colors. This one only has one color, which is violet or purple, depending on the manufacturer. If you look, you'll see this capacitor on the top is blown. This one is one I repaired a while back. I used a little bit bigger capacitor. Makes it last longer. This one's going to beep as it charges. That's my power supply. Oh, maybe not. As you can see, I keep interrupting power. It changes colors. So, we're going to remove this blown capacitor and replace it with one that's the same power but slightly fatter. Hopefully get a little bit more longevity out of it. It's a relatively simple process. You need a soldering iron, solder, snips. And these are polarized electrolytic capacitors. The negative rail is closer to the LED disc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip the two pins. And now you can kind of really see how blown out it is. Slight bulge on that end, but the front blew out. It should kind of look like that, where it's flat and flat. If you're not familiar with capacitors, this one is polarized as well. There's your negative rail, and your positive's not marked, which is the opposite side. So, soldering iron's up to temperature. First thing I'm going to do is pre-tin the capacitor. And the reason I cut these off is, if you look at this circuit board, hopefully it'll focus. It's really hard to put a new capacitor in there and solder all the way through. So by leaving the two pins sticking up, you can solder back to those pins. So I'm going to tin the pins. Clean the tip a little. There we go. In case you can't tell, what I'm doing off camera is cleaning the tip off. And now we're going to solder the new capacitor on. If your capacitor has short leads, you can always solder extension wires on, little pieces of wire. I've done that before too. This capacitor should still fit just fine. I'm not cutting anything, I'm just rebending the lead. This capacitor is narrower, so I just had to bend the leads out a little. Capacitor's on. Let's test it out. These LED lights from Hot Tubs can run on 12 volts AC or DC. They have a full rectifier right there. So now we got blue, white, green, yellow, red, I want to make sure it goes into its rotate pattern. There we go. So, that was a quick and easy fix. If you have an old spa light that isn't flooded out, you can just change the blown capacitor if it quits changing colors on you. It's the most common issue. I've changed a dozen or so. Now if your light has flooded, it might be all rusty like that. Yeah, that side looks pretty nice and clean, but the back side's all corroded because this one actually, the back side of it got submerged in water. So, and surprisingly, if I remember right, still works. This one's laid out differently, as you can tell, or try to tell. It's kind of overpowering the camera. Green, blue, red versus mixed in like the other two. Yeah, it partially works. What it does is it turns the red off and then turns the red back on slowly. So it doesn't rotate, but the LEDs do work. Most likely is probably either a bad capacitor or a bad chip, but just something to be aware of. Different spa manufacturers, different light companies, they come in different sizes and shapes, and the style that uses a big capacitor on the back, which is actually really common. Here's another one that uses a nice large capacitor, goes straight across. Here's one that uses another small one. If you want to try and fix it yourself, it's not changing colors, or it flashes when it turns on, which is what this one was doing originally. You press the power button and it flash. Then check the capacitor.